homeless girl gives water to exhausted man without knowing he's a foreign millionaire. Emily adjusted the worn-out beanie on her head and looked once more at the man sitting on the park bench who seemed about to faint. "Mister, are you okay?" she asked, approaching slowly while holding the water bottle she had filled at the public fountain minutes earlier. The man lifted his eyes with difficulty. His grey suit was wrinkled, his tie crooked, and his face covered in sweat. He tried to answer but could only manage a weak hand gesture. Emily didn't hesitate. With her small fingers, she unscrewed the bottle cap and moved closer to him. "Drink, mister." "Slowly," she said, tilting the bottle carefully so the water touched the man's parched lips. Richard Morgan, CEO of one of Europe's largest tech companies, had arrived in the United States 3 days earlier for a crucial meeting. But at that moment, exhausted by the heat and the rush of recent days, all he could do was accept the water offered by this girl in threadbare clothes. The cool water flowed down his throat like divine relief. Richard took a few long sips before murmuring, "Thank you. Thank you so much." Emily smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face, marked by life on the streets. "You have to be careful with this, son. Almost every day, someone feels sick here in the park." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Richard took a deep breath, feeling a little better. He observed the girl more closely. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old, wearing an oversized t-shirt for her thin frame and a skirt that had seen better days. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice still weak. "Emily. And yours?" "Richard. Do you live around here?" The girl shrugged, a gesture that spoke louder than words. "I stay around here. The park is big, has shade, and Mrs. Dorothy from the kiosk sometimes gives me bread." Richard's heart clenched. Even in his exhaustion, he couldn't ignore the reality of this child. But before he could say anything, he heard someone shouting his name. "Mr. Morgan! Mr. Morgan!" It was Michael, his American assistant, running toward him with a face red from worry. "My God, sir, I've been looking everywhere for you, the meeting." Richard gestured for him to calm down. "It's fine, Michael. I just got lost and needed to sit for a bit." Michael eyed Emily suspiciously, and she instinctively took a step back. "Was this girl bothering you?" "No," Richard replied quickly. "She helped me, gave me water." Emily was already walking away when Richard called out, "Wait, Emily!" But the girl had already disappeared among the park trees, leaving only the half-empty water bottle in Richard's hands. "Sir, we need to go." "The investor meeting is in an hour," Michael insisted. Richard stood up, still holding the bottle. Something about that girl had deeply touched his heart. Maybe it was the natural way she had offered help, expecting nothing in return. Or maybe it was the stark contrast between her situation and his own. "Michael, I want you to find out everything about this girl. Where she stays, if she has family, everything." "But sir, we have commitments." "Do it. It's important." In the days that followed, Richard couldn't get Emily out of his mind. The business meetings, the luxurious dinners, the 5-star hotels, everything felt hollow compared to the simple gesture of that child. Michael, efficient as always, brought the information 3 days later. "The girl's name is Emily Johnson. She's 8 years old. Her mother disappeared 2 years ago, and she ran away from the city shelter 6 months back. She's been living on the streets ever since." Richard felt his stomach twist. "And the father?" "He was never registered. The girl practically doesn't exist in the system. No documents, no school, nothing. I want to find her." "Mr. Morgan, with all due respect, you have a €5 billion company to run. You can't get involved with every social problem you come across." Richard stared at him firmly. "I'm not getting involved with every problem, Michael. I'm getting involved with this one." The search for Emily proved harder than Richard had imagined. The girl was like a ghost, appearing and disappearing around the city. He returned to the park several times, always at the same hour, but she never showed. A week later, when Richard was about to give up, he spotted the familiar beanie near the park fountain. Emily was sitting on the grass, sharing a piece of bread with a stray dog. "Emily!" The girl looked up, startled. When she recognized Richard, her first instinct was to run, but something in his expression made her hesitate. "The mister from the other day," she said cautiously. Richard approached slowly, not wanting to scare her. "Yes, it's me. I came to thank you for the water." "No need. The water wasn't even mine, it was from the fountain." Richard smiled and sat on the grass, keeping a respectful distance. "Still, you helped me when I needed it." Emily kept feeding the dog, but Richard noticed her watching him out of the corner of her eye. "You're rich, aren't you?" she asked suddenly. The blunt question caught him off guard. "Why do you say that?" "The man who came to get you, your clothes, the way you talk. I'm not stupid." Richard nodded. "Yes, I have money, but that didn't stop me from needing your help that day." "Everybody needs water," Emily replied simply. They sat in silence for a moment. The dog, satisfied with its share of bread, curled up at Emily's feet. "Is he your friend?" Richard asked, pointing at the animal. "That's Spot. He doesn't have a home either, so we get each other." Richard felt that tightness in his chest again. How could a child live like this in the 21st century? "Emily, wouldn't you like to have a place to live? A real home?" The girl eyed him suspiciously. "You want to take me to the shelter again? I won't go. It's bad there. They don't let Spot in and the grown-ups are mean." "No, I'm not talking about the shelter. I mean a real home where you and Spot could live." Emily's eyes flickered with hope for a second, but then the distrust returned. "Why? You don't even know me. Because you helped me without knowing me either. And because it's not right for a child to live on the streets." Emily hugged her knees, looking smaller than her 8 years. "Lots of things ain't right in the world, Mr. Richard, but you get used to it. You shouldn't have to. You should be in school playing being a kid." "I am a kid, just a different kind." Richard rubbed his face, frustrated by his own inability to put his feelings into words. "Let me help you, Emily. Please. You're leaving soon, aren't you? Going back to your country?" The question hit him like a punch. It was true. His business in the United States was nearly wrapped up, and soon he'd have to return to England. "Yes, but then it's better not to. When good people leave, it hurts worse than if they never showed up at all." The child's premature wisdom broke Richard's heart. He stood, pulling a card from his pocket. "I'm leaving this with you. It's Michael's number, my assistant. If you need anything at all, just call. There's a payphone right on the corner." Emily took the card, studying it like it was some alien object. "I don't read too good," she admitted quietly. Richard knelt in front of her. "Do you know your numbers?" She nodded. "Then that's enough. If you need anything, just dial these numbers." When Richard walked away, Emily tucked the card into the safest pocket she had. She didn't plan to use it, but it was good to know someone in the world cared, even if only for a little while. The days passed, and Richard threw himself back into his business obligations, but Emily stayed on his mind. During a video conference with his board in England, he caught himself absent-mindedly sketching the girl's face in his notepad. "Richard, are you listening?" His partner's voice snapped him back. "Yes, sorry. Go on, Stephen." But his mind was far away. How could he worry about mergers and acquisitions when a child was sleeping on the streets? That night, Richard made a decision. He called Michael. "I want to start a foundation here in the United States, something to help homeless children." "Sir, that's very noble, but it takes time, paperwork, investment." "Then get started. Hire the best lawyers, social work experts, whatever it takes." "And the girl? Emily? She'll be the first one we help." But the universe had other plans. The next morning, Richard got an urgent call from England. His mother had suffered a heart attack and was in the hospital. "I need to go back immediately," he told Michael as he rushed to pack. "What about the foundation project?" "Keep everything moving. I'll return as soon as I can." Richard left that same day, his heart torn between worry for his mother and the weight of leaving Emily behind. On the plane, he promised himself he'd come back, that he wouldn't be just another adult who vanished from that girl's life. But weeks turned into months. His mother recovered slowly, needing constant care. The company faced an unexpected crisis that demanded all his attention. Michael sent reports on the foundation's progress, but the American bureaucracy was more complex than they'd anticipated. Meanwhile, in New York City, Emily continued her life on the streets. That winter was especially harsh, and the cold nights tested her endurance. Spot, her loyal companion, kept her as warm as he could, but hunger was a constant presence. On one particularly cold night, Emily remembered the card. She'd kept it so carefully that the edges were worn. She stared at the numbers, long since memorized. "Do you think he remembers me, Spot?" she asked the dog, who only wagged his tail. At the payphone, her hands shaking from the cold, she dialed the number. The call went to voicemail. She tried twice more with the same result. Michael had changed his number weeks earlier, but of course Emily had no way of knowing. Disheartened, she returned to her corner in the park. Mr. Richard was like all the others. He made promises and disappeared. The difference was, for a moment, she had believed him. Across the ocean, Richard woke with a start once again. The same dream, Emily offering water, but when he tried to reach her, she vanished like smoke. "I need to go back to the United States," he told Stephen during a meeting. "Richard, be reasonable. The company needs you here. Your mother needs you. And that girl needs me too. You don't even know if she's still alive." Stephen's words struck him like lightning. It was true. Months had passed. Anything could have happened. "All the more reason to go back," he replied firmly. But fate kept working against his plans. His mother had a relapse, and Richard found himself torn between family duty and an unspoken promise to a girl he barely knew. In New York City, winter gave way to spring, but Emily's situation grew worse. Mrs. Dorothy, the woman at the kiosk who sometimes gave her food, had closed up shop. The park security guards had become stricter, constantly chasing away the homeless. On a September afternoon, Emily was sitting near the fountain when she saw a familiar car park. Her heart raced. Could it be? But it was only Michael, the assistant, who stepped out. He looked around, clearly searching for her. Emily hid behind a tree, watching. Michael walked up to the park security guard, showed a photo, probably of her, and spoke for a few minutes. The guard shook his head. Michael left what looked like a card and drove away. Emily waited until he was gone before approaching the guard. "What did that mister want, Mr. George?" The guard, who had known Emily for months, sighed. "Looking for a street kid. Left this card, said to call if she showed up." Emily took the card. A different number from the one she had. "It's a scam, kid. These rich folks promise the world, then disappear. Don't fall for it." But Emily kept the card anyway. Something told her Richard wasn't like the others. Or maybe it was just stubborn hope, the same kind that had kept her alive on the streets. That night, she decided to call. This time, someone answered. "Dr. Michael Thompson's office." Is this the mister who works with Mr. Richard?" There was a pause on the other end. "Emily, is that you, Emily?" "Yes." "Oh my God, kid. We've been looking everywhere for you. Mr. Morgan is beside himself." "He's back?" "No, he's still in England, but he's called me hundreds of times asking about you. Where are you?" "At the usual park." "Don't move, I'll come get you right now." Emily hung up, her heart pounding. Could it be true? After all these months? But when Michael arrived with a social worker, panic set in. She knew this kind of situation all too well. "You're taking me to the shelter." "No, Emily. We're taking you somewhere safe. Mr. Morgan, he's not even here. You're lying." The social worker tried to step closer, but Emily was ready to bolt. "Easy, sweetheart. No one's forcing you to do anything." "Where's Mr. Richard? He said he'd help me." Michael knelt, trying to meet her eye level. "He's trying, Emily. His mother is very sick, that's why he can't come. But he thinks about you every day, calls me all the time to ask." "Liar." "It's not a lie. Look, I'll call him right now." Michael took out his phone and dialed. It was 3 in the morning in England, but he knew Richard would answer. When Richard heard they'd found Emily, his voice cracked. "Let me talk to her." Michael handed the phone to Emily, who took it with trembling hands. "Hello? Emily, thank God you're okay. I've been so worried." It was really him, the mister from the park. "You disappeared," she said, her voice small. "I know, and I'm sorry. My mother got really sick, and I had to take care of her. But I didn't forget about you. Not for a single day." Emily felt tears rolling down. "I tried calling. The number didn't work. I know that was our mistake. I'm so sorry. But everything's okay now. Michael will take care of you until I get back, all right? When are you coming back?" "As soon as I can, I promise. But in the meantime, you'll have a warm place to sleep, food, and you can bring Spot. I made sure of that." "Really? Really? Do you trust me?" Emily looked at Michael, at the social worker, then at Spot, who wagged his tail as if he understood. "I trust you. But the trust of a child hardened by life is fragile." When they arrived at the temporary foster home they'd prepared, a simple but cozy house in a quiet neighborhood, Emily was wary. "How long do I have to stay here?" "Until Mr. Morgan sorts everything out," Michael explained. "What if he doesn't come back?" The social worker, Dr. Jennifer, stepped in. "Then we'll find another solution, but he seems very determined to return." Emily explored the house cautiously. There was a room just for her, with a real bed. A bathroom with hot water, a kitchen with food. It felt like a dream. "What about Spot? He can stay in the backyard. There's even a little house for him." That first night in the warm bed, Emily couldn't sleep. She was used to the noises of the street, the hard ground, the cold. The comfort scared her. What if they take all this away tomorrow? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following weeks were a difficult period of adjustment. Emily, accustomed to the freedom of the streets, felt trapped. The house rules, set times to eat, sleep, and shower, suffocated her. "I want to go back to the park," she told Jennifer one afternoon. "Why, dear, don't you like it here?" "It's not my home. It's Mr. Richard's house. When he gets tired of paying, I'll have to leave anyway." Jennifer sat beside her. "You know he's setting up a foundation, right? To help kids like you. It's not charity, Emily, it's justice." "What's the difference?" "Charity is when someone gives what's left over. Justice is when we recognize that every child has the right to a decent life." Emily didn't respond, but the words echoed in her mind. Richard called every week. The conversations were short. Emily still wasn't entirely comfortable, but he persisted. He talked about England, about his mother who was getting better, about the plans for the foundation. "When I come back, I want you to help me," he said during one call. "Help how?" "I don't know how to do anything. You know what street kids need. No one can teach that. You've lived it." "You want me to talk about the bad stuff?" "I want you to help me do the right things." But the path wasn't simple. The bureaucracy to formalize Emily's situation was complicated. Without documents, she officially didn't exist. The foundation faced legal hurdles. And Richard, torn between caring for his mother and his business, watched time pass without being able to return. One day, Emily overheard Jennifer talking on the phone with Michael. "He needs to understand he can't just adopt a child. There are laws, procedures." "Adopt?" The word echoed in Emily's mind. Mr. Richard wanted to adopt her. But why? She was nothing to him, just a street kid who gave him water once. That night when Richard called, she confronted him. "You want to adopt me?" There was silence on the other end. Yes, I've thought about it. But it's complicated, Emily. I live in another country and... Why do you want to do this? You don't even really know me." Richard sighed. "You're right. Maybe I'm rushing things. But since that day in the park, I feel like I met you for a reason." "What reason?" "I'm still trying to figure it out, but I know I can't just go on with my life knowing you exist and need help. Lots of kids need help." "Yes, that's why the foundation. But you were the first one I saw, the one who moved me. I can't explain it better than that." Emily stayed silent, processing. In her short life, she'd learned that adults who promised too much usually delivered too little. "What if you get tired of me?" "What if you get tired of me?" he replied. "Relationships are risks, Emily, but some risks are worth taking." The words hung between them, separated by an ocean, but connected by something neither could fully name. But fate had more trials in store. The next week, Jennifer arrived with bad news. "Child Protection Services wants to transfer you to an official shelter." "Why? I'm fine here." "Because this is a temporary situation. And since Mr. Morgan is a foreigner and not in the country—" "I won't go," Emily shouted. "You promised." "We're fighting it, dear. But the law—" Emily didn't wait to hear the rest. She ran to the room and began packing her few belongings. If they were going to send her away, she'd leave first. At least on the streets, she was free. But when she tried to leave, she found Michael at the door. "Don't run, Emily, please. You're going to send me to the shelter. I know what it's like there. We won't let that happen. Mr. Morgan is coming." "That's a lie. He always says he'll come and never does." "This time is different. He's already at the airport." And it was true. Richard had made a drastic decision. He left the company in Stephen's hands, hired nurses to care for his mother, and flew to the United States. When he arrived at the house the next morning, he found Emily curled up on the couch with Spot at her feet. She looked up and for a moment neither spoke. "You really came?" she whispered. "I said I would." Richard approached slowly and sat on the floor in front of her. "I'm sorry it took so long." Emily studied him with those eyes that had seen too much for a child. "Is your mother better?" "She is, yes. But I realized I can't spend my life waiting for the perfect moment. Sometimes we have to choose what's most important." "And am I important?" Richard held her small hands in his. "You've become very important to me, Emily. I can't explain how or why, but it's true. They want to take me to the shelter." "I know. I came to stop that." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." The following days were a legal and bureaucratic battle. Richard hired the best lawyers, but the system was inflexible. A single foreigner trying to adopt a child without documentation was met with suspicion. "You need to prove ties to the United States," the lawyer explained. "Permanent residence, means of support here. Then arrange that." It's not that simple. And even then, the process could take years. Richard slammed his fist on the table. "She doesn't have years. Every day in uncertainty is a day stolen from her childhood." But shouting didn't help. The system moved at its own pace, indifferent to human desperation. Meanwhile, Emily watched everything with her precocious wisdom. She saw Richard's effort, but also saw the reality. "Maybe you should give up," she said one afternoon as they walked through the park. "Why would you say that?" "Because it's too hard and you have your life back in England." Richard stopped and knelt in front of her. "My life is where I choose to be, and I choose to be where you are." "But what about your company? Your mother?" "I'll find a way to balance it all. People do it all the time." "Not for some street kid without papers." Richard gently cupped her face. "You're not some street kid. You're Emily, the brave girl who gave me water when I needed it, who takes care of Spot, who's survived things no child should have to. You're special." Emily felt the tears coming but held them back. Crying was a luxury the streets didn't allow. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we try another way and another, until it does." But the weeks passed and the legal barriers seemed insurmountable. The juvenile court scheduled a hearing to decide Emily's fate. The tension in the house was palpable. The night before the hearing, Emily couldn't sleep. She found Richard on the porch, also awake. "Are you scared?" she asked. "I am." "You?" "Me too. But I'm used to fear." They sat in silence, watching the stars. "If they send me to the shelter, will you keep trying?" "I'll try until my last day." "Promise?" "I promise." On the morning of the hearing, Emily wore the nicest clothes Jennifer had bought her. She looked like a normal child, but Richard could see the fear in her eyes. In court, the judge was a stern woman who examined the case with clear skepticism. "Mr. Morgan, Do you understand you can't just appear out of nowhere and expect to adopt an American child? I do, Your Honor. But I also understand that this child needs a home. There are many American families wanting to adopt, but none of them know Emily. None of them have a bond with her. The judge flipped through the documents. A bond? You met her less than a year ago. Sometimes a moment is enough to change everything. The hearing continued with legal arguments, expert opinions, discussions about the child's best interest. Emily, seated between Richard and Jennifer, felt like an object being negotiated. When it was her turn to speak, the judge looked at her with something that might have been kindness. Emily, do you want to live with Mr. Morgan? Emily looked at Richard, then at the judge. I want to stay with whoever won't give up on me. And you think he won't give up? He came back, even when it was hard, even when he had to leave everything behind. He came back. The judge nodded thoughtfully. I'll give my decision in 15 days. 15 days. To Emily, used to living one day at a time, it felt like an eternity. Back at the house, the mood was somber. Richard tried to stay optimistic, but even he was shaken. What if she decides against us? Emily asked. Then we appeal. We fight. We don't give up. But Emily knew the system better than he did. She knew that when the government decided something, they rarely changed their minds. The days dragged on. Richard tried to distract Emily with outings, talks about England, plans for the future. But both knew everything was on hold, waiting for a stranger's decision. A week before the ruling, something unexpected happened. Jennifer arrived with a strange expression. We have a problem. Richard felt his blood run cold. What happened? A woman showed up claiming to be Emily's mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily, playing with Spot in the backyard, didn't hear, but Richard felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. What do you mean? Her mother disappeared 2 years ago. I know, but she has documents, photos. She wants her daughter back. This is impossible. Where has she been all this time? Jennifer sighed. She says she had drug problems but is clean now. She even has proof from a rehab clinic. Richard ran a hand over his face, trying to process it. And now? Now the situation just got a lot more complicated. The courts usually favor family reunification. But she abandoned Emily. The girl was living on the streets. I know, but in the eyes of the law... Richard didn't wait to hear the rest. He walked out to the backyard where Emily was throwing a ball for Spot. Em, I need to talk to you. Something in his tone alerted her. She approached cautiously. What's wrong? How to say it? How to explain that the ghost of the past had returned? Your mother. Someone showed up claiming to be your mother. Emily's face transformed. Shock, fear, anger, all in seconds. No. She's dead. She left and died. She's alive, Em. And she wants you back. No! The scream came from the depths of her soul. She left me. She abandoned me. She's not my mother anymore. Richard held her as she thrashed, crying like she hadn't in years. I won't go. I won't. I'd rather go back to the streets. Easy, sweetheart. No one's forcing you to do anything. But he knew it wasn't true. If the woman proved to be the biological mother, the law would be on her side. The next day, the supposed mother arrived at the house. Richard watched her through the window, a thin woman looking older than she probably was, with clear signs of a hard life. Emily refused to see her. I don't want to. I don't need to. Jennifer tried to mediate. Emily, maybe if you just talk to her. Why? So she can lie? Say she loves me? Where was that love when I was sleeping in the cold? The woman, Melissa, insisted on speaking to Richard. I know I messed up, she said, tears in her eyes, but I was sick. The drugs, you don't understand what they do to you. I understand it made you abandon a 6-year-old child. I didn't abandon her. I thought she was better off without me, that they'd take care of her. And you didn't try to find out for 2 years? Melissa lowered her head. I was ashamed, scared. But I'm clean now. 6 months clean. I want my daughter back. She's not an object you can pick up and drop whenever you want. She's my daughter. Where was this motherly love when she needed it? The conversation went nowhere. Melissa left, promising to return with a lawyer. Richard found Emily hiding behind the door, having heard everything. She's going to take me away, isn't she? Not if I can stop it. But can you? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The following days were a legal nightmare. Melissa had indeed hired a lawyer, likely with promises of future payment. DNA tests were requested. The hearing with the judge was moved up. The night before the new trial, Emily went to Richard. "If she takes me, will you forget about me?" "Never, not ever. You'll always have a place in my heart." A heart isn't a home. Sometimes it's the only home that matters. In court, the legal circus began again. Now with three parties: Richard seeking to adopt, Melissa wanting her back, and the state deciding the child's best interest. The DNA test confirmed it. Melissa was the biological mother. The judge heard all the arguments: the abandonment versus rehabilitation, the emotional bond versus blood ties, the future in England versus roots in the United States. When it was Emily's turn to speak, she surprised everyone. "Can I ask her a question?" She pointed at Melissa. The judge nodded. Emily stared at the woman she once called mother. "Why now? Why come back now?" Melissa seemed startled. Because I love you, sweetheart. I always have." "No. Why now? You've been clean for 6 months. Why not 6 months ago? Why only when someone else wanted to take care of me?" The silence in the courtroom was heavy. I heard there was a foreigner trying to adopt you. I was scared of losing you forever. So it's not about me, it's about your fear." The brutal wisdom of the child left everyone uneasy. The judge intervened. "Emily, sometimes adults make mistakes, but they deserve a second chance." She had a second chance. Every day I waited for her was a chance. That's over 700 chances. Richard felt pride and sorrow, seeing the strength of that little warrior. The judge called a recess. When they returned, her face was even graver. "This is a complex case. On one hand, we have the biological mother who, despite her mistakes, has legal rights. On the other, a well-meaning but foreign and single man." Richard's heart sank. "But," the judge continued, "the child's well-being is paramount. Emily has endured things no child should. She needs stability, safety, unconditional love." She looked at Melissa. "Miss Melissa, your recovery is admirable, but 6 months is too short. Relapse is a real risk." Then to Richard. "Mr. Morgan, your dedication is clear, but international adoption has its complexities." Finally to Emily. "And you, child, have suffered too much for your age." The decision hit like a bomb. "I'm granting temporary custody to the biological mother with oversight from Child Protection Services. If there are no issues in a year, custody becomes permanent." Emily felt her world collapse. Richard stood, furious. "This is a mistake. She can't go back to the person who abandoned her." "Mr. Morgan, control yourself or you'll be removed," Melissa cried, but they were tears of relief. Emily didn't cry. She'd learned tears don't change decisions. Outside the courtroom, Richard was desperate. "We'll appeal, we'll fight, this isn't over." But Emily, with her 8 years and the wisdom of a veteran, touched his face. "Yes, it is, but it's okay. I survived before. I'll survive again." It's not about surviving. It's about living, being happy. Happiness is for the rich, Mr. Richard. Poor folks settle for survival. The words shattered his heart into 1,000 pieces. The transition was scheduled for the following week, 7 days for goodbyes to prepare a child to return to what she feared most. Richard tried everything. He called influential contacts, threatened to sue the state, even offered to establish permanent residency in the United States. Nothing worked. Melissa showed up a few times, trying to get closer to Emily. She brought gifts, a doll, clothes that Emily would look at but never touch. "Remember when you used to love dolls?" Melissa tried. "Remembering hurts," Emily replied. On the last night, Richard and Emily sat in the backyard. Spot, as if he understood, stayed unusually close. "She said I can take Spot with me," Emily remarked. "At least that. Are you leaving now?" "Not right away. I'll stay nearby, keep an eye on things. The judge can't stop me from doing that. But eventually you'll have to go. I'll always come back, whenever I can. Promises are debts. Then I'll owe you for the rest of my life." On the morning of the departure, Emily packed her few belongings. She was taking more than she'd arrived with, but far less than she deserved. Richard hugged her tightly at the door. "This isn't goodbye. I know, it's see you later." But both knew that see you later sometimes lasts forever. Melissa waited in the car, nervous. When Emily got in, holding Spot in her lap, she tried to smile. "It'll be okay, sweetheart, you'll see. I rented a little place for us, got a job as a cleaning lady. It'll be different." Emily didn't answer. She looked out the back window and saw Richard standing on the sidewalk, growing smaller with every passing meter. The little place was a single room in a tenement building. Melissa had tried her best to make it presentable, but the reality was harsh. A mattress on the floor, a hot plate, a shared bathroom down the hall. "It's temporary," Melissa hurried to say. "Once I save up, we'll move." Emily knew all too well the promises of once I get better, once I find a job, once life improves. The once never came. In the first few days, Melissa made an effort. She woke early for work, left food prepared, tried to talk at night. But 2 years of absence couldn't be bridged by good intentions alone. Richard called every day. It was the moment Emily waited for, the minutes when she could pretend nothing had changed. "How are things?" "Everything's fine," she lied. "Emily." "It's okay, Mr. Richard. Don't worry." But he did worry. He'd hired someone to discreetly watch over her, to make sure she was safe. The reports were concerning but not alarming. Poverty wasn't a crime, and Melissa seemed to be trying. Weeks turned into months. A routine settled in. Melissa worked, Emily took care of herself, as she always had. The difference was that now she had a roof, however fragile. Then on a Thursday, everything started to crumble. Emily came back from the bakery and found Melissa talking to a man at the door. Something about him set off every internal alarm in the girl. "Who was that?" she asked after he left. "A friend. Just a friend." But Emily knew friends like that. She'd seen plenty of them before Melissa disappeared the first time. In the weeks that followed, the friends showed up more often. Melissa started coming home late. Sometimes she didn't come home at all. The food money vanished. Excuses multiplied. Emily said nothing to Richard. She knew if she told him, he'd make a scene and things might get worse. She learned to hide food, to lock Spot in the room when the friends came over, to pretend to sleep when Melissa stumbled in, not herself. 3 months after the move, Emily woke up to find Melissa gone. It wasn't unusual, but something felt different. The few valuables they had were missing. Even the old radio that played sad songs. She waited one day. 2. On the 3rd, the tenement owner knocked on the door. "Where's your mother? The rent's late." "She'll be back soon." "No, she won't. That one's gone off the rails again. If you don't pay by Friday, you're out on the street." Emily looked at Spot. Not again. But what could an 8-year-old do? The money she'd saved wasn't enough for rent. Sell what? They had nothing. That's when she made a tough decision. She called Richard. "She's gone," she said bluntly. On the other end, Richard nearly dropped the phone. "What? When? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but they're kicking me out Friday." "No, they're not. Stay calm. I'm coming over now." "No. If they find out, they'll take me to the shelter." "Emily, please just help me figure out what to do." Richard took a deep breath. "Where's your mother?" "I don't know. It's been 3 days." 3 days? Why didn't you call me sooner?" Because I wanted it to work. I wanted her to be a mom." The silence between them was heavy with unspoken pain. "Give me the tenement owner's address. I'll have Michael pay the rent. And then we'll see." one step at a time. Michael paid not just the overdue rent, but 3 months in advance. The tenement owner, Mrs. Barbara, grew suspicious. "What's your interest in the girl?" "His boss knows the family," Michael explained vaguely. "Right, knows them. And where's her mother?" "Away on business." Mrs. Barbara wasn't foolish, but money was money. 3 months. After that, without her mother, she's out. Emily bought time but knew it was temporary. Melissa had vanished like smoke, taking the last illusions with her. Richard was desperate. He wanted to report the abandonment, restart the adoption process, but his lawyer warned him. "If you do this now, they'll say you planned it all, that you paid the mother to disappear. That's absurd." "That's what they'll claim. You need to wait. Make it clear the abandonment was her choice." "And Emily? She's alone?" "Legally, we can't do anything official, but nothing stops us from helping unofficially." And that's what they did. Michael started visiting daily, always with groceries, always checking in. Jennifer came for follow-up visits. Richard called 3 times a day. But Emily felt the weight of the situation. She was in limbo, not homeless, but without a home, not an orphan, but motherless, not adopted, but with someone who wanted to be her father. "How long are we going to pretend?" she asked Richard during one call. "As long as it takes." "What if she comes back?" "Then we decide what to do." "What if she doesn't?" "Then we fight for your adoption again." But time passed, and Melissa showed no signs. 1 month, 2. The charade grew harder to maintain. It was Mrs. Barbara who forced the issue. "I know the girl's mother is gone," she told Michael one afternoon. "I'm not blind. The girl's fending for herself." "Are you going to report it?" Mrs. Barbara studied him. "Depends. Do you want what's best for her, or are you exploiting her?" "We want to adopt her. But the courts gave custody to her mother." "A mother who abandons her child isn't a mother, just a birth giver." The raw wisdom struck Michael. "So you won't report it?" "I'll give you 1 more month. If you fix it, fine. If not, I'm calling Child Protection Services." The ultimatum was set. 1 month to find Melissa, or a legal solution. Richard came to the United States immediately. This time there were no business meetings, just one mission: secure Emily's future. When he saw her after months, his heart ached. She'd grown, but something was different. A hardness in her eyes, a renewed wariness. "You look different," she said, studying him. "How so?" "Thinner, more worried." "You're different too. More experienced." The word coming from an 8-year-old was painful to hear. They hugged, and for a moment the world made sense. "We'll fix this," he promised. "You always say that, and I always try." Trying isn't succeeding. Richard hired a private investigator to look for Melissa. They needed her, alive or dead, officially present or absent. Meanwhile, they kept up their routine. Richard rented a nearby apartment so he could stay close without raising suspicion. Emily remained in the tenement building but spent her afternoons with him. "Why can't I just live with you?" she asked one day. "Because the law would see it as kidnapping." "Stupid law." "I agree. But it's the law we have." The investigator brought news in the 3rd week. He had found Melissa in a public clinic, hospitalized after an overdose, alive but barely. Richard went to see her. The woman in the hospital bed was a shadow of the one who had taken Emily in. Emaciated, sunken eyes, barely conscious. "Melissa." She struggled to focus on him. Who are you?" "Richard. The man who wants to adopt Emily." A flicker of recognition. My girl. The one you abandoned. Again." Tears streamed down her ravaged face. I tried. I swear I tried." "Trying isn't succeeding." Richard repeated Emily's words. "Take care of her. Please, I'm no good. I need you to sign the papers, terminating your custody." Does she hate me?" Richard thought about lying, about comforting her. But Melissa deserved the truth. She wanted to love you, but you wouldn't let her. Melissa closed her eyes, more tears falling. The papers. Where do I sign? The lawyer had prepared everything. With trembling hands, Melissa signed the formal relinquishment of custody. Tell her. Tell her I loved her, in my own twisted way. Richard took the papers without answering. Some things are better left unsaid. With the documents in hand, the legal path reopened. But it wouldn't be simple. The abandonment was clear, but Richard was still a foreigner, still single. The new judge, the previous one had retired, was younger, but not necessarily more flexible. Do you understand how highly irregular this is? The birth mother conveniently gives up custody while hospitalized. She abandoned her child, Your Honor, left an 8-year-old alone for months. According to you. According to the facts, we have witnesses, documents. The judge examined the case, clearly uneasy. And you intend to take the child to England? I intend to give her a home, wherever is best for her. Convenient. Richard held back his frustration. Your Honor, with all due respect, what's convenient? A child staying in legal limbo or getting a chance at a decent life? What's convenient is following the law, Mr. Morgan. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. More waiting, more uncertainty. Emily watched it all with her unsettling calm. If it doesn't work out again, it's okay, she said one afternoon. It's not okay, Em. You deserve certainty, security. Deserving and having are different things. But Richard noticed that despite her tough words, she had started hoping again. Small gestures gave her away. How she fixed her hair before going out. How she saved little things for when. The tenement community had rallied. Mrs. Barbara, now converted to the cause, organized a petition. The girl needs a father, and this man wants to be hers. What's the problem? On the day of the hearing, a small crowd showed up. Neighbors, local shopkeepers, even the park security guard where it all began. The judge seemed surprised by the support. I see the child has a local support network. Mrs. Barbara stood up without ceremony. Support we give. But the girl needs family. And family is who cares, not who looks. Ma'am, please. Sorry, Your Honor. But we see the girl every day. We see the man too. He comes from far away, spends time and money. Why? Because he loves her. Doesn't that count? The simplicity of the argument seemed to strike a chord with the judge. Witnesses followed one after another. Jennifer spoke about Emily's development during her time with Richard. Michael detailed the efforts to keep the girl safe even from a distance. Even the detective testified about Melissa's condition. When it was Emily's turn, the judge was kind. Emily, do you understand what's happening here? Yes, they're deciding if I can have a family. You already have a family. Your mother, my mother chose drugs, twice. Mr. Richard chose me, twice too. And if he takes you to England, you'll leave everything behind. Emily looked around. What do I have to leave? Poverty, hunger, fear. Your roots, your culture. Culture doesn't fill your stomach. Roots don't give you a home. The judge sighed. You're too young for such big decisions. I was old enough to survive on the streets. Why aren't I old enough to choose happiness? The argument hung in the air. Richard was the last to speak. Your Honor, I didn't plan this. I didn't wake up one day deciding to adopt an American child. But life sometimes leads us down unexpected paths. Emily has taught me more about courage and resilience than my 50 years of life. She deserves a chance. Just one chance to be a child. To study without worrying about lunch. To sleep without fear. To dream about the future instead of surviving the present. I may not be the perfect father, but I promise to be a present father. The judge called a recess. When she returned, her face was serious, but there was something different in her eyes. This case has made me reflect deeply on what family means, on what's truly in the child's best interest. The law exists to protect, not to punish, to unite, not to separate. She looked at Emily. You clearly have maturity beyond your years, a maturity no child should ever need. then at Richard. "And you've shown extraordinary dedication. You crossed oceans, literally and figuratively, for this child. The decision came like music. I grant full custody to Mr. Richard Morgan, with the adoption process to be finalized according to legal procedures." The courtroom erupted in applause. Emily ran into Richard's arms, and for the first time in a long while she cried. But these were different tears, tears of someone who could finally let their guard down. "Is it true?" she whispered. "It's true. You're my daughter now. And you're my dad? Forever." Outside the courtroom, the small crowd celebrated. Mrs. Barbara hugged Emily tightly. "Be happy, child, but don't forget about us." "Never, Mrs. Barbara." The following months were about adjustment. There was endless paperwork for the international adoption. Richard decided to stay in the United States until everything was settled, enrolled Emily in school, and began building the life she deserved. The first time Emily called him Dad was in an ordinary moment. They were at the supermarket and she wanted ice cream. "Dad, can I?" Richard froze. She realized what she'd said and blushed. "Sorry, it just slipped out." "No, don't apologize. It's the most beautiful word I've ever heard." Adjusting to school was challenging. Emily was behind academically, but her sharp intelligence soon caught her up. Within months, she was on par with her class. "Dad, look, I got an A in math. I'm proud of you, sweetheart." The words once impossible now flowed naturally. The news about Melissa came on a rainy afternoon. She had passed away at the clinic, her body too battered to hold on. Richard hesitated to tell Emily, but she had a right to know. She took the news silently, processing it. "Did she suffer?" she finally asked. "I don't know, love. I hope not." "Me too. She made a lot of mistakes, but I think she suffered a lot too." The maturity to forgive, even without forgetting, moved Richard. "Do you want to go to the funeral?" Emily thought for a long time. "No. I'd rather remember her from before, when she still tried to be a mom." The adoption process was finalized on a sunny December morning. Emily Johnson officially became Emily Johnson Morgan. "Can I keep Johnson?" she had asked. "Of course, it's part of who you are. But now I'm Morgan too, the best Morgan of all." The move to England was carefully planned. Richard wanted it to be an adventure, not a trauma. They took Spot, obviously. Emily said goodbye to every important person, promising to return for visits. At the airport, she held Richard's hand tightly. "Are you scared?" he asked. "A little, but the good kind of scared." "There's a good kind?" "There is. It's the fear of something new that could be good, not the fear of something bad you already know." On the plane, as New York City faded behind them, Emily looked out the window. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for giving me water that day." She smiled. It was just water. It was the start of everything. Life in England had its challenges, a new language, a new culture, a new school. But Emily, a born survivor, adapted. In 6 months, she spoke English. In a year, she had friends. In 2, she was just a happy girl with an extraordinary past. Richard set up the foundation in the United States as promised. The Living Water Foundation, the name chosen by Emily, helped street children. They returned twice a year to oversee the projects. During one visit, they stood in the same park where it all began. Emily, now 12, healthy and happy, sat on the same bench. "It feels like another life," she said. It was another life. "Sometimes I wonder, what if I hadn't given you water that day?" Then another day, another moment. Destiny insists when it's important. "You believe in destiny?" "I believe in choices. You chose to help. I chose not to forget. We chose to be family." Emily hugged her father. It was the best choice. A boy approached, asking for money. Before Richard could respond, Emily was already opening her backpack. "Are you hungry?" she asked the boy. He nodded, wary. She pulled out a sandwich and a water bottle. "Here, and if you need more help, look for the Living Water Foundation. It's on the next street over." The boy took the food and ran off. Richard watched his daughter with pride. Always prepared. Always. You never know when someone might need help. Like you did. Like I did. And like you did too. They sat in silence, watching the bustling park. You know what amazes me the most? Richard said. You could be bitter, angry, after everything you went through. Why? Anger doesn't change the past. It only ruins the future. When did you get so wise? I always was. You just took a while to notice. They laughed together, father and daughter bound by ties stronger than blood. Back in England, life went on. Emily grew up, studied, became a brilliant young woman. But she never forgot her roots. She studied law, specializing in children's rights. I want to defend those who have no voice, she told her father on graduation day, like you didn't. Like I was lucky enough to find someone who listened. Richard, now with grayer hair but a heart still young, hugged his daughter. I was the lucky one. Years later, Emily returned to the United States to run the foundation. She married an American, had children. Richard, a doting grandfather, split his time between England and the United States. One afternoon, taking his granddaughter to that same park, he told the story. This is where I met your mother. And she gave you water? She gave me much more than water. She gave me purpose. The little girl, with the same bright eyes as her mother, smiled. So water is important. Water is life, but kindness is what makes life worth living. On that bench, 3 generations united by a simple gesture, the circle was complete. From a homeless girl to a respected lawyer, from a lonely businessman to a beloved patriarch, the transformation had been mutual. Emily appeared with more water, as she always did when they visited the park. Old habits, she said, handing it to her father. The best habits. As the sun set over New York City, the Johnson-Morgan family knew that not all stories begin well, but with courage, persistence, and love, they can all have happy endings. And so, in an ordinary park, on an ordinary day, an extraordinary act of kindness had not only changed 2 lives but created ripples of transformation that would reach hundreds of other children through the foundation. Because sometimes, all someone needs is a glass of water and someone who cares enough to offer it. The end of the story. Now tell me, do you think small gestures can change lives? Which moment touched your heart the most? Leave a comment and share if you also believe in the power of kindness. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.